fact. You whispering my name, thinking I won't be the same. Turn fiction into fact. See what you didn't know, bruises that I'll never show, slipping on your every jab. So tighten up your fist, step into the ring with this. I hope your mama's got your back. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. Just 'cause I took a break, you're making a huge mistake, thinking you can take the throne. Look at you trembling, step into the lion's den. Bet you wish you stayed at home, begging for mercy underneath your breath when I ain't even sweating yet. My legend's written in the stone, yeah. You're crying age in defeat is now your only friend. Even your mama's gotta know. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 First round, fifth round, final round. Oh, yeah. First round, fifth round, final round. No, 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 no. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh,
Hi, this is Penn. Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me, he does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. Anyway, I wanted to welcome you to In Time with Nick. And, oh, what's that, Teller? What's that, Teller, what's that? Oh, yeah, yeah, Teller wanted to say welcome to In Time too, but his mic is off, like Nick. Love you all. Peace.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Time. This is going to be a little bit of a unique show today. We're going to open with breaking news. We had a regular show scheduled for 3 p.m. to discuss this very incident, and rather than do a breaking on the capture and then discuss the incident, we've kind of merged the two. So despite the breaking news headline, and we are going to do the breaking news, and the breaking news is that a suspect has indeed been captured. As we were going with this, they were refusing to they just called him a person of interest, He was picked up in a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. After multiple employees called the police, they found him with a ghost gun. That is a gun that's been put together from parts and is untraceable. They believe it's been 3D printed. He had a document, a 2-page document, rallying against the healthcare system and multiple fake IDs, including one fake ID, which they believe was used at the hostel in New York. So when the arrest was made, they arrested him on. Oh, sorry. Looks like apologies. The sound is an issue here. Let me. I think. There you go. I think I had screwed up the gain there. So. Can anyone, do I need to repeat that, or did you all hear that the first time? Close this. I'm going to quickly check the live chat and see, make sure that we got the sound corrected there. Yeah, he recognized the guy in line trying to buy food. What was his name? Luigi. I had his name a second ago. Let me go snag his name. And Luigi Mangione. He is 26, and he was originally questioned and then arrested just on a possession charge of the ghost gun. Thank you, Dick. I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me know. But it appears now, while he has not been charged with the murder, he has been declared by the New York police as the suspect, and he is obviously going to be charged with that in I'm assuming presently. So is Andrew any thoughts? Welcome. Any thoughts?
Well, I always assumed that they were going to catch the guy, whether they actually caught him or not. This was too high a profile. It got too much attention on social media, and especially with the response on social media to this killing, I didn't think there was much of a chance that they weren't going to catch somebody for this crime. You can't let all of that go and then just say, oh yeah, well, we just can't find the guys. No, they were going to find someone because they wanted to make a statement that you can't get away with this. So I always suspected that would be the case. It appears they've caught somebody with a bunch of questionable things. So I'm kind of curious. You know, they said that they arrested him on the charges of the possession of the gun. You know, they named them ghost guns just because that's a scary sounding name. It's simply a self-manufactured firearm. You know, you have the right to keep and bear arms. That implies a right to build your own firearms, and in fact, it's legal for you to build your own firearms. So I'm not sure he must have violated some sort of statute in order for him to hold them on that. So I'm not sure what it exactly was, but there's a lot of other incriminating things that he has in possession. But I don't believe they've actually charged him with anything other than a possession of the firearm.
Correct. I don't believe they have charged him with anything, but it's fast moving, and they before when we were prepping to go live, it was crystal clear to us that he was going to be the one that they were going to charge with this. They had enough to have it. They were just saying, they didn't know yet he was still a person of interest. But I was like, no, this is the guy, and
I would say of interest, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had a gun that was a ghost gun that was identical to the one used. He had multiple IDs, and he had a 2-page manifesto railing against the healthcare system. I think this is going to be the guy. They don't just randomly pick up something like that. So I have to tell you, the first one who brought it to me was Titan, and he said, okay, Luigi Mangione picked up in Altoona, or like cartoon or something like that. I was just like, wait, what? And I was just like, oh, is this a joke? I was like, he's like, I don't know. I was like, we have to deconstruct whether or not this is real or not. Well, it's real. So they do have him. Now, I had heard a couple of people suggest, and I thought this made a lot of sense to me, was that he was actually a professional. And here's why. A, he was calm, cool, and collected throughout the entire thing. B, he was able to get a gun that, and knew to get a gun that was not going to be traceable. C, he had this planned. He had an escape route planned, a change of clothing planned. He seemed to know where the cameras were. He knew where he could go. He knew he'd be watched up until a certain point, and where he could go where there wouldn't be cameras, and then he could change into other clothing. He knew to leave. Presumably, we still haven't confirmed that the Monopoly money was his, but that appears to be the implication, that the Monopoly money and the jacket was his. It was found in a bag that matched his description. That hasn't been confirmed by police, so it's one of those things I want to be a little careful with. Everyone's like, oh, he left the Monopoly money. We don't know that. It does appear that way. The police seem to suggest that they believe it was his, but we don't know. Nobody's confirmed that yet. So, at least not to the best of my knowledge. If it's been confirmed, I haven't heard it. So, but if that's his, that was done deliberately too. No fingerprints. That's not true. One smudged fingerprint on the water bottle, which could have been from whoever gave him the water bottle. So, long story short, this smelled to me as if this was a professional. What are your thoughts, Xander?
Well, I agree with you that there was planning involved in this. It's pretty clearly premeditated. However, I don't believe that he was a professional. He may have been hired to do this, but he's not a professional. There's several things that tell me this. Is anybody who is very familiar with firing pistols know that pistols tend to have a tendency to malfunction. They do have malfunctions, and one of the drills that shooters will do is immediate malfunction clearing actions. So as soon as you pull the trigger and you get a click instead of a bang, there's a muscle memory set of actions that you immediately take. And he didn't do those things. He seemed to fumble with it a little bit. Also, a professional would have, they haven't mentioned much about the suppressor, the fact that this was a manufactured gun, homemade manufactured gun, may explain why he had so many malfunctions. But you would think that a professional would go out and make darn sure that the combination of pistol and suppressor that he was using would function correctly so that you don't have malfunctions.
Let me make one thing clear. The media has been saying repeatedly that there were malfunctions, but I've looked into this, and my understanding is actually the gun did not malfunction a single time. The kind of gun that was manufactured actually requires a manual clearing of each round after it's fired. You have to eject the shell manually. So what you actually see him doing, and that is a limitation of that particular firearm with the built-in suppressor. I forget the kind
Correct.
of.
I know what.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I know what firearm. I know what firearm that they were initially saying that it was, and there have been a couple of gun tubers that have actually pulled out that exact weapon and showed you exactly how it worked. That particular weapon is a single shot 9mm firearm, and it's got a built-in suppressor on it. However, it is a NFA item. So he didn't home manufacture it. And two, the way the action on that works is it's kind of a tubular upper receiver, and it has a knob on the back. And in order to cycle the weapon, you have to turn it, you twist it, and then you pull it back, and then that clears the spent shell casing, and you push it forward, which chambers a new round, and then you have to twist it and lock it again. When you watch the video, which I did, that is clearly a semi-automatic slide. It is not now it may be because it was manufactured. He may not have manufactured it with a gas system or a blowback system in order to cycle. So he may still have had to cycle it manually. But the fact that he pulled the trigger the first time, and you can see that he pulls the trigger again and nothing happens, and then he racks the slide. He pulls it straight back, and then you can see he kind of rides the slide forward. And then he goes to fire again. Nothing happens, and he actually hits the back of the slide to push the slide forward and into battery. So the gun that they were initially speculating that he used with the built-in suppressor is one, it's an actual firearm that can be purchased. However, it's an NFA item, so there would be a paper trail a mile long.
What does NFA mean?
Oh, National Firearms Act. That's what gave us tax stamps for banned machine guns, banned suppressors, without purchasing a $200 tax stamp, and you have to go through a whole bunch of background checks in order to try and get one.
Okay.
So there's a paper trail a mile long for any NFA item. So any automatic weapon, any suppressors, silencers, they all require a $200 tax stamp. It's incredibly rare, to the point of almost never happening, that somebody uses an NFA item in an actual crime. So it was that was another reason why it's like, if this was a professional, he would not have used any NFA item. It would have had to have been completely homemade type stuff, or stolen, I guess. So that's looking at the actual actions that he took with that firearm. That is not the initial firearm that they were suggesting that it was. That is a single shot and requires that manual. But they were claiming that this was a manufactured gun, a homemade manufactured gun, ghost gun, the general slang for them, which means he could have 3D printed it. 3D printed guns have a lot of issues. You have to work through them a lot to get them to function reliably. You can also buy what's called 80% lowers, which where you purchase essentially a handgun frame and it's 80% complete, and you have to finish the manufacturing process to be able to install a trigger and the mag well. And then again, you still need to go through and make sure that it's functioning correctly and cycling correctly, which it did not appear to do in the video. So I don't believe this guy was a professional, though he very well may have been hired, or he may have had a personal grudge. I do believe that that this was premeditated and had planning of.
Yeah. So, well, and it's good to know. So his gun really did, in fact, jam. So the initial reports were, in fact, correct, and the alternate. Okay, so that's good to know. So for those of you just joining us, and then we'll talk about how we're going to do the rest of the show in a minute, but for those of you just joining us, the suspect for the killing of the United Healthcare CEO has been taken into custody. He was found in Altoona, Pennsylvania at McDonald's when an employee called the police officers. He was found in possession of multiple fake IDs, a gun with a suppressor, and a document railing against the healthcare industry. It was a two-page, so railing, I guess, but okay. He has been charged with the possession of an illegal firearm, but we believe he will very quickly be charged with the murder of the CEO. The document, we don't know what it says yet. Actually, I'm going to see if we may actually have a copy at this point. But it is quoted as saying, quote, "It had to be done. These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." This, according to a police officer who has seen the document and reported on what it said. So, is there anything else do you think that I've missed that we need to? I mean, there isn't much else. We don't know much else right now. We know that he's in custody, and it does appear to be the guy. I think we can safely say this is the man that they've been looking for. The fake, one of the fake IDs appears to match the ID that was used at the hostel. The gun appears to match the gun that was used, and he had a manifesto, quote manifesto. I don't know. I'm a writer, but I know how many pages it takes to go from a novella to a novel. I don't know how many pages it takes to go from insane rambling to manifesto, but I think it's more than 2. Not an expert, but I don't know. Anything? I know limited details. Anything you think we missed, Zandring, before we move on to the second portion of our show?
The only thing that I have to do, I've got to maintain my conservative membership card. So everybody needs to go out into their kitchens, pull out their roll of tinfoil. It needs to be at least one full roll, maybe an extra half a roll just to be safe as we dive into this particular conspiracy theory that the person that they arrested is a plant, and that they gave him all of that stuff to make a very good and solid, convincing case for the fact that they have found them. I was always kind of under the in the back of my mind that sneaking suspicion of, no, they're going to find this guy whether they find him or not.
Yeah.
And so they gave him all of the stuff that would be just a slam dunk, open shut killer case for everything that the law enforcement could possibly want to nail somebody to the wall for this.
I think
now that we've gone through that deep, dark conspiracy theory, we can remove our aluminum foil hats now and act more rationally and say this is the evidence that we currently have.
Well, and I would think, I do think you bring up a valid point, which is there's enough pressure on the police. First of all, some of the memes have been, and there are some memes on our Discord, there's a few memes on a lot of Discords, and we're trying to keep them civil. Funny is fine, but calls for assassination are obviously not acceptable. There was a meme that basically was Marge Simpson. There's a lot of Simpson memes, but actually it had Bart sort of blindly, blindfolded, looking around, and said, someone in New York gets stabbed or killed, black man in New York stabbed or killed, and Bart's the police. It's like, I don't know, I don't see anything. And then when it's, CEO in New York gets killed, Bart with a huge telescope, investigating. So I think there was enormous pressure, obviously, to find the guy. I think if they were going to plant someone, they'd wait a little bit longer. And the reason you want to wait a little bit longer is because you don't want to inadvertently have the guy picked up by another police department somewhere else, say in Los Angeles. You want to really make sure you don't plant someone until you can't actually find the right guy. That would be I've never done that before.
Or they had no one. Or they had again.
Yep.
I've got to brush off my.
Oh, here we go.
My bona fides for being conservative. Or they want to find him really fast, so they end the manhunt for the real shooter.
Yeah, if the shooter wants to get caught, though, which can happen, you're going to have a problem going down the road.
Yeah, but if he wanted to get caught, he wouldn't have disappeared so effectively initially.
Left breadcrumbs, though, deliberately, would be mine. But yeah, here goes the rabbit hole.
We're recycling tinfoil at this point. So,
although somebody, actually, Titan said, is Andering Holmes on the gun? It's like, yeah, cause we're going to need somebody who knows what he's talking about, because it ain't going to be me. All right.
Well, you just asked what my thoughts about whether this guy was a professional or not. I'm like, everything that I watched does not scream a professional shooter to me.
Yep. And so I would like to say hello to everyone in the live chat. To Lauren, I think aluminum does work. Aluminum may work even better than tinfoil. I don't know. I'm not the expert in hats. I suppose Xander is the one to ask. If I make the hat out of aluminum, does that count, or does it have to be tinfoil?
Yes. They're essentially the same thing. It's like calling something a soda, a pop, or a Coke. All the same stuff.
It's all the same stuff. Perfect. So we had a show planned for 3 p.m. and it was going to be a discussion on what appears to be a really significant and sudden fracture along not a political divide, but along class lines. Anyone who is middle class or lower versus the extreme upper class, the so-called 2%. And it's staggering. It's a little nerve-wracking. And it is pervasive on absolutely every form of Blue Sky, Twitter, TikTok has been having videos, and I've seen videos. a number of them. There was one, and again, we were in the process of queuing all of this up so we could have this ready for you. Some of the TikTok ones we're not going to show. That it would be violating YouTube's terms of service to show them. One was a young woman who had written a very nice song about how, this is just the start, and we need to pile up more CEOs. And some of the writing,
I believe the refrain was, "I hope we get them all."
Yes, that was how it ended. That was how that was the end of it. And then she just repeated that refrain, and it used to be that very few people would have the cojones to put something like that online, and right now we are finding that everywhere. Christmas carols, I found a refrain from Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah. Well, actually, I think that was originally Leonard Cohen. At any rate, and again, actually rather well written, but really calling for either the execution of more CEOs or some form of class warfare. And it's interesting because I remember Michelle Bachmann often talking about class warfare, and I was like, no, when bandits break into a nobleman's house, grab his family, spit roast the nobleman, and then, force the family to eat the nobleman, which was common back then. That was called class warfare. This is something different up until now, because this has been an interesting topic, which is what to do with this guy. He is becoming a folk hero. The person that he killed, I think, at first glance, it's sort of like, well, he killed a nice chap walking down the street, and then you take a look at, okay, he was CEO of United. Well, why is that a bad thing? Well, United, and somebody had said it's actually the second largest. No, it's the largest healthcare provider in the U.S. and had when he came in as CEO, he first of all switched them to an AI that would check claims first before passing it off to a human, and had something like a 90% denial rate. They also actually had a policy of deny every single claim the first time it comes around, and only actually consider it after they reapply, just to raise the bar a little higher and to sort of, I guess, separate the wheat from the chaff there. As the denials of claims, and I think they had about a 30% ultimate denial rate, starting from the second tier. As those the denials went up, so did their profit margins, and the company had become a great deal more profitable. But as that happened, stories of people suffering dramatically from healthcare costs, families getting wiped out from healthcare costs, and people dying from delays due to these policies became commonplace. And we've all seen and heard them, and most of us know somebody who, if not with United, with at least some company, that the problems got so bad that they either suffered and or in fact died. This also includes a couple of cases, one where they declined anti-nausea medication to a 9-year-old girl who was undergoing chemo because they said nausea was not a normal side effect of chemo. That was the argument. And by the way, they hired, and this is recently under his administration, they hired Dr. Nick, also from The Simpsons. They hired quack doctors who had either lost their licenses or were not allowed to practice, but they had been barred from practicing, but still technically had a license. Had multiple cases of malpractice against them, and they would hire these doctors to testify in court that the denials were appropriate, even when all the body of medical science said the denials weren't. So it's not hard to go from that reality to the man that was shot outside of the hotel in New York was a murderer because he was actively engaging in policies that he knew would result in people's deaths. So we now have a very complicated situation and people who are extraordinarily upset, justifiably so, with the establishment as a whole. And I think that Trump was elected is evidence of that. So we already knew that people have been upset at the establishment, but upset in a catastrophic way with the healthcare system, such that people can now openly celebrate the assassination of a healthcare CEO and call for the assassination of even more, and do so openly and freely, is a staggering change. And it's a flashpoint that has occurred in literally a 24-hour period. If you had asked me 3 days ago if this is what we'd be seeing on social media, and I'm going to do some quotes in a minute, and some of them might not be entirely appropriate, but since they're at the cost of Ben Shapiro, I think that justifies a lot, and I'm perfectly willing to do it. But anyways, any thoughts on my general spiel before we get into specifics there, Xandrin?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird time when you're like, oh, we're so divided along political lines, and then something happens and you're like, wow. We're seeing quite a lot of unity here between like true conservatives, MAGA conservatives, I guess rhinos you call them, and people on the left. It's like, wow, the people on the right are actually finally worried about, corruption, greed, mega corporations running things and controlling our lives. So you're actually seeing true conservatives concerned about that, MAGA Republicans concerned about that, which they didn't seem to be in the past so much. And we weirdly have Democrats and leftists that are kind of okay now with the Second Amendment. So it's been an interesting bit of time, and it's definitely a data point to pay attention to, because we've far surpassed general inequities where countries collapse. Yes. Historically. We've gone well beyond that. There's always been this little tipping point where it's like, hey, when societies have this much inequity between the upper class and the rest of the masses, we tend to see revolution, violent uprisings, etc. Countries tend to collapse, and we've surpassed that historical norm. So it's yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
Oh yeah, so it's just one of those things where you're like, man, maybe we should pay attention. We're seeing the beginning of the breakdown of social cohesion, into more class specified, warfare or divisions, I should say.
Yes.
So yeah, it's definitely something you should be paying attention to and watch. And I started off being a bit depressed on that, going, okay, here's another step along the path of, collapse of a country. And then I was like, well, we've been in places like this and worse in the past, and we always back away from that kind of cliff. We never really topple over there was that one time it was a while ago.
One exception.
That there was just one exception. We didn't really back away from, it was a kind of a minor thing. You probably haven't heard of it. It's usually by, the nerdy historian types kind of referred to as the Civil War. But other than that one, we've been in some pretty dark places as far as social cohesion before, and we've always stepped back from that precipice. So when I remembered, that we've got a 99.9% track record of stepping back from these and not actually delving into outright violence and war, that's a fairly good track record. One time we didn't.
Yeah, it is a good track record. It's not perfect. And I say the same thing usually when we talk about anytime someone says, oh my God, whenever World War III is a trending hashtag, I was like, you know how many times that hashtag has trended? And granted, Twitter didn't exist for World War I or World War II, but the kinds of situations that cause world wars actually happen all the time, and 99% of the time nothing happens. It's the 1% you got to worry about. GeoStrebber says, all you need to know about the American healthcare system is that there is a TV show about a chemistry teacher who must become a drug dealer just to pay for his treatment. Yeah, I think that's more eloquent than I've been so far. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting juxtaposition when it comes to healthcare in the United States too, because if you're just looking at like trauma care, injury care, something bad happened to you, like you were in an accident or something, and you're taken to the hospital. The United States actually has an outstanding track record with saving lives in that instance.
yes.
Like the healthcare for that is amazing, like #1 in the world. Now there's some issues with the financial aftermath of that can cripple people. But the actual care itself is just top notch, amazing. Then we get into like just general health, the health part of healthcare. And we're terrible at that. The entire system is just broken. And it's like, I've always maintained I'm very sympathetic to, single payer arguments. And it's like, I have some issues on how do you do this because, despite what a lot of activists for single payer will have you believe, single payer systems also have a lot of problems. It's like I've listened to Canadian radio. The Canadian healthcare system is not as great as activists would have you believe, but according to Canadians themselves, complaining about all of the problems they have with the Canadian healthcare system. However, there's so many different ways that you could go about this, and the details really matter. I've always believed that the kind of system that we have today has got a lot of problems. It definitely is broken, and there's people bring up a lot of good points about it. The question is what are you going to do about it? And we've now pushed people, taken advantage of, and pushed people to the point that they are willing to laud, cheer, and at worst just kind of be apathetic about the murder of a CEO of one of these healthcare companies. And that's not a good place, not a good trend to be following if you care about a nice, stable country that's going to at least remotely resemble the country that you grew up in.
Well, and yeah, so I want to hit a couple points. First of all, the last I checked, and I haven't checked in a little while, if the numbers changed, it's probably gotten worse, not better, and it certainly hasn't changed by much. But last I checked, and this number I know is still a fact, the U.S. pays more for health care per capita than any human being. First of all, the U.S. pays more in healthcare, which is perfectly fine. I don't mind paying the most in healthcare if we get the best. And in some cases, we actually do have the best. But in terms of general outcomes, we rank 34 out of industrialized nations. So out of all industrialized nations, we rank 34 for healthcare outcomes. 1 for cost, 34 for outcomes. 34 last I checked. I guarantee you it hasn't changed much from that point. All right, thank you. That's untenable. And the fact, I think everybody, we've discussed that before on In Time. I don't think that would come as a shock to anyone who doesn't know those numbers. I think anybody who isn't a wonk who looks at the UN Health and Happiness Index or the figures for rating a nation's equality or anything like that would still be able to tell you, well, our healthcare system is busted, but it's been able to be turned into this huge wedge issue. I agree, and here's sort of my concern, which is, and this is, yeah, we've got this guy turned into a folk hero, and it's done a couple of things. First of all, it has brought the right and the left together in a way that I haven't seen before. There was a comedian, and I think we've got him on the Discord. By the way, come join our Discord. We'll be discussing this and a lot more on the Discord. And for all of us, I would also like to add that this is still a little new. I have been talking with a lot of friends, and they've all been on one side and then said, well, maybe it's the other side. And so we're all processing. There's people in the live chat still processing. You can tell, historians have tried to figure out what's the best indicator of when a society is about to collapse, and there is no one indicator that you can use, but the best single indicator that's most correlated is the disparity between the wealth, and what is the highest level of disparity between the average worker and the guy at the top. And when it passes a certain ratio, I think it's 30-something to 1. I've forgotten the exact amount. But when it passes a certain ratio, that's when countries are starting to look at collapse. This is what happened in Rome. This is what happened in France. This was the, let them eat cake. This is actually also what happened in the U.S. twice, both in terms of the Revolutionary War and in terms of the Civil War. What is it? Not the Union Army. The
Confederate.
Thank you. The Confederate Army didn't have enough money for shoes. They were already in debt before they even started. And you take a look at that, and we have, as Zandring pointed out, passed that number quite some time ago. That number doesn't prove that there's going to be a war, but that level of inequality causes instability, and now we're looking at this. The Gilded Age is the other one, and the Gilded Age is the prior highest record, and we have now beaten that one. So the Gilded Age, I forget what the inequality ratio was there, but that was the previous highest record of a society getting somewhere before there was an internal collapse or revolution. The U.S. has surpassed all of them in terms of inequality. So when this happens and we see this kind of rejoicing, it's not as surprising as you'd think. I'll point out also, it's not that different from January 6th. January 6th was a different group of people, and in my view, very much, obviously what they were doing was highly illegal. So is the assassination of a healthcare CEO. In both cases, it was people feeling like power was being taken from them, and they were so sick and tired of being, this is just the left's version of it. So there are a couple of statements I'd like to say about it, but this has united the left and the right so much that, first of all, there was a comedian I saw, hopefully he's in the Discord, I think we put him on the Discord, and these are not comfortable questions. This is not easy to deal with, and I like to think that that's something that we on In Time do confront head on and admit when we're in a position like this, because I don't think anybody with a heart can say that what that man was thinking when he pulled the trigger, we can't understand that. Or as much as we disagree with and abhor murder, and again, this wasn't just murder, this was assassination, we've all seen, and most of us know someone who's died as a result of healthcare. For me, someone I know who was very close died very preventably from a 2-week lapse in their healthcare. Just 2 weeks. But for 2 weeks, they couldn't get medicine they needed to stay alive. And while they did survive after that, they got an infection during that 2-week period because they didn't have the proper medication, because healthcare wouldn't cover it for just 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks, you'll be fine 2 weeks without it. So we understand. Having said that, the second we say, oh, it's okay to go around murdering people without due process, then what's the point of law in the first place? That's the discussion we're having now. John Shapiro, who I think is certifiably insane and in much need of a great deal of mental health medical insurance, went on to say that this was an attack by the left, and that the left was now doing an uprising, and that when the right does their uprising, the left goes, oh my God, you can't have an insurrection, you can't do, but now when this guy does it, he's celebrated, which Shapiro is right on that point. But having said that, Shapiro did miss the mark in a couple of very significant ways, not the least of which is this actually isn't the left. It's everybody who makes less than $200,000 a year. So the comments section.
Quick side note.
Yeah, please.
Quick side note before you get into the comments. We are talking about Ben Shapiro, not not John Shapiro.
Ooh, thank you.
It's
Did I
Ben
say John?
Shapiro we're talking about. Yeah, you said. I'm pretty sure you said John Shapiro. For a moment, I thought maybe you were talking about the comedian that you had posted in the live chat, but no, we're talking about Ben Shapiro of Daily Wire fame.
Thank you. Yes, Ben Shapiro. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. That's important. But as to the comedian, I did forget. The comedian pointed this out, and I thought this was hilarious and true. He said, this has actually united America in a way that we've never been united before. Why? Because people on the left, and I've seen this, are sitting there saying, you know, maybe the right's got a point with the Second Amendment, which is really scary because they're not saying using it for self-defense. They're saying using it essentially in the ways that kind of the right sometimes talks about, which is repelling, you know, the government.
Tyranny.
Tyranny. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Resisting tyranny and gross violation of human rights. So yeah, that's what the entire purpose of the Second Amendment put in the Constitution was not. Well, I mean, it was self-defense oriented, but defense against tyrannical entities, not just the government, but in order to protect yourself from your rights being violated, you being stripped of your rights, and from a governmental and corporate overreach. That was the whole point of the Second Amendment.
So you have people on the left now, and I mean, I have seen on X, on Blue Sky, on TikTok, people on the left, at least claiming to be on the left. I don't follow them, so I don't know for certain, but they're like, yeah, I'm on the left, and I'm starting to think that maybe the right has a point about the Second Amendment. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm seeing people on the right saying, yeah, I'm a conservative, but you know what? It's time we fix this, and the only solution that anybody's got that seems like it's going to work is single payer. And it's like, did you just say that? So Ben Shapiro came out, attacked the left. These are the comments on his live chat. Now, some of these are liberals who came to troll and then found out they didn't need to troll because his own audience attacked him. So this is comments to Ben Shapiro's video. I forget the name of it, and I don't have the name here. Again, we had to throw this together kind of at the last minute because we had breaking interrupt our preparation for the 3 o'clock show. So Ben Shapiro was talking about basically, though, the left was advocating for class warfare, and that the left was advocating for and celebrating the death of a CEO, and he's right to some extent. But it's not just the left. And one of his regular viewers, it appears to be his regular viewers, says this isn't left versus right, it's rich versus poor, and now we know which side you're on. Another comment, I work in a factory, deep red state. My coworkers all voted for Trump and wear his merch. They were laughing at the incident. This is not just the left. Let's see. The perfect out-of-touch response from a rich kid who never struggled. You are alone on this, Ben. This just reaffirms your position and stance against the working class. Something I've noticed is establishment commentators on both sides are talking about what a tragedy this is, while everyday people on both sides are celebrating it. If only the latter would realize this and who the new common enemy is. And then we've got someone replying to a previous thing. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty liberal, but the way I saw CNN and MSNBC talking about the incident gave me a new perspective on why conservatives talk about the media being controlled. Because I was happy when I saw that, and so did all my conservative family members. No struggle, but a class struggle. America is finally starting to get it. Yup, to quote another commentator, we threw tea in the ocean over a 3% tax. This is us being American patriots. Yes, I'm seeing people of all stripes right now. This is on Ben Shapiro. This is attacking him on his own. Let's let's see, on his own, these are the comments on his own site, which, by the way, these are the ones that he didn't delete. There was a whole bunch that were deleted. He gets called out for that too, and I don't know if they're still up there. It's everyone. I don't know what Ben is talking about. Ben, you are a millionaire. You aren't a true blue-collar conservative. You're a rich guy who tries to appeal to working-class Republicans. You don't understand what people go through. Let's see, and then someone here, I'm a liberal. I was going to troll, but I'm just glad that the comments are giving Ben a reality check. My dad voted Republican in every local, state, and federal election since I was born in the 1980s. I was with him when this news came out, and he said, about goddamn time. Read the room, Ben. And then the last one, my brother-in-law died because they never approved the correct treatment for him. This is not left versus right, Ben. I didn't find a single positive comment in Ben Shapiro's entire comment section. Not one saying, good video, great job, nothing. By the way...
You and I looked. We looked last night.
We looked. We spent...
Through this morning. We spent a lot of time looking.
I got a program to download all the comments off his video. I got through the first 150. I didn't find anything positive. I will also point out that the United Healthcare Facebook page put up a post saying our condolences to the family of, we have lost a member today, and we all grieve. That comment got 80,000 replies, and it's like the little emoji replies. 77,000 of them were laughing emoji. 77,000 out of 80,000 before they shut down the replies.
I believe this is what the Twitterverse refers to as being ratioed.
Yeah. So, anyways, obviously we took a look at that and we said, okay, this merits discussion. And so again, this was planned for 3 p.m. today. And as we were getting all of the media together and we were going to show you some media and we were getting it, we had to go to breaking because they caught the guy. We're like, okay, we still have another show today, later today to do with Commander McMillan on Syria because obviously Syria has fallen. Assad is now under humanitarian asylum in Russia, which I have never heard the words Putin and humanitarian put together, especially when talking about Assad. But that's the situation, and so we're going to go over that in another show tonight. So things just got a lot going on very quickly.
That's one of those, allegedly. I mean, has anybody received a recent tweet or a recent text message from Assad?
Yeah, he's there's pictures of him and shaking Putin's hand, and we know he's there. He's there, and his whole family is there, and Putin has admitted to granting them what he called humanitarian asylum, as opposed to regular asylum. I don't know. So, I think this has to be bifurcated a little bit. First of all, I was talking with a friend, and actually Lance knows this friend. It's Pat. He's a really good guy, former police officer. He's been on once or twice before. But he said something once that really kind of offended me. He said, Nick, you're institutionalized. And I'm sitting there going, I was always the kid who made the most noise in summer camp and did crazy things and did this and that and, stood out in one way or another. And he said, yeah, but, if somebody tells you what the rules are, do you just completely ignore them? I was like, no, I do tend to be a bit more of a rule follower. I mean, sure, in time we use copyrighted music all the time, yada, 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 but, we take the hit for it, and I don't complain, and we go forward. So, I think I'm a rebel, and he's like, no, you in the end really believe in the system one way or another. And the reality is I do. So I, at least more than some people. So I look at this guy, and the reality is I have always had some skepticism for the American judicial system, but not enough. Absolutely not enough. And I had a father who was a criminal defense attorney. He knew people who had had evidence planted on them by police officers. You and I, as Andrew, we're going to do a show on that. We've had so much video of police officers planting evidence that was captured on body camera that the reason we haven't done the show yet is because we haven't been able to sift through all the footage, and you can find it on YouTube. The one that gets me, because it most shows the inadvertent consequences of this kind of thing, was two police officers in New York who had body cameras on, and they had pulled over a guy for driving while black. And that's exactly why they pulled him over. It's crystal clear that's why they pulled him over. And they did an initial check of his car and couldn't find anything. So one of them's talking to the other, and he says, here's the problem. We have to let him go. We're hitting on the time limit for how long we can detain him. We're going to have to let him go unless we find something. And he said, give me one more crack at the car, and then, let's see if we find something that'll at least let us hold him overnight, and then we can take as long as we want with the car. And you could tell that they were talking about planting something. The officer then turns off his body cam. Now, what he didn't realize is the body cam is still recording. It's just not saving the recording. When you turn the power back on, there is a 10-second buffer of what you did in the last 10 seconds that's still there. There's no audio, it's just the video. And I've known this about body cams for a long time. How the hell I know this and that officer did not, I have no idea. And a lot of officers get caught this way. They think the body camera is actually off. It's not. You can see him taking a bud of marijuana, dropping it right into a cup holder, and then turns the body camera back on. But at this point, it just keeps the 10-second buffer of the last 10 seconds. So we actually see him planting the evidence. And then he goes, oh, let me see here. Look, oh, my God, what did I find here? And he pulls out the very thing that he just dropped there. And so we've been planning a show on this for a while. It hasn't, like I said, there's just so much. And Xandring's the one who's hooking me up with all this footage. It is eye-opening if you want to see how many instances there are of officers planting things on people. And the reality is, part of me gets it, because all this officer wanted was to detain the guy for another 24 hours. But first of all, it really was racist. I mean, it was the color of his skin, that's it. And he's not permitted to do that, and for very good reasons. And what he figured was, well, the marijuana charge would just hold him, and then they'd drop the charge and let him go. Okay, makes sense, and the cop's following his hunch, right? So let's just drop the racism element and all that other stuff and just look at this police officer who presumably is trying to help the public and honestly has a hunch. That guy was on probation for a drug crime. The marijuana violated his probation. So now, instead of him going to jail overnight so they could look at the car for their hunch, which the car was completely clean, guy was completely clean, it was literally driving while black. Instead of that, he's now violated his probation because a police officer planted that on him. Now he's looking at 28 years in prison because an officer just had a gut instinct and wanted to look over and thought it would be okay, harmless, to plant a little marijuana on him. The officer didn't know his background. Well, he was a drug dealer, so I guess it's okay. Except, guess what? When they finally subpoenaed that footage, got his conviction overturned, and got him out of jail, for which he spent 5 years for the marijuana which was planted on him. Turns out, in the previous case for which he was on probation, that one the cops planted it on him too, and they eventually got that overturned. Twice, officers felt justified in planting something on him, and I don't know whether they meant him malice or not, and I'm going to give them the absolute best of intentions that I can possibly give and say that they were, just genuinely concerned, yada, yada, yada. By breaking the law, by not doing their jobs, they destroyed a guy's life. How many times has that shit happened? A lot more than people think. All right, and Titan got me some info. We'll get to that in a second. So There was a reason I wanted to go into that. We were talking about police corruption.
Because you were torn over the reaction to. It's like on the one hand, it's like you understand why people feel this way, but on the other hand, you're a bit institutionalized, and believe in our policing industry and our rule of law, and so you come up across this juxtaposition.
They have to catch the guy. They have to catch the guy, and that's what I was planning on saying at 3 p.m. today, was they have to catch the guy. I don't care that he's an American folk hero. I don't care that everybody empathizes with him. They have to catch him. They have to try him. They have to try him with a jury of his peers, and a jury of his peers is not a jury where the prosecution can remove anybody who's had a healthcare issue. No. Let's have a real jury, including people who've never had a problem with healthcare and people who've had loved ones die from healthcare, and let him be tried and go through the system. I would probably feel uncomfortable with him getting off, because I would think that would encourage other people to go out and do assassinations. But if he went through the process, and if that's what a jury of his peers found, because we were that fucking pissed, then that's the warning that people are getting. That's how bad our society is getting. And the people who are pulling the strings, and it is the CEOs, are playing a game of chicken that I don't think anybody wants to play. They seem to want to play because they're the ones getting the money. I don't think it's wise. But the idea that as soon as you say it's okay for him to do what he did, then you can justify anybody taking matters into their own hands when they feel like something has been a travesty of justice. Every one of the January 6th guys, fucking idiots and lunatics. No respect for me. Uneducated. Clowns. Everyone believed in their hearts that the election was stolen and that they lost something precious to them, and were willing to fight for it. So we have to be very, very, very careful encouraging that. It's not to say that there's two different arguments, and we conflate them. The first argument is, what should happen to the guy? And it's okay. I do think it's okay to celebrate him. And I think it's okay to be happy about it because, well, happy about it is perhaps the wrong term. I think it's okay to celebrate him, and I think it's okay to have the conversation. And in fact, I think we need to have these conversations. And the man that he killed had innocent children and family. I think he had kids and a wife. If I recall, he did. That he has widowed and orphaned. But then again, how many people did he widow and orphan? Two wrongs don't make a right, but it is absolutely worth the discussion. But two wrongs make a right as little today as they did 10 days ago. So I think as long as we sort of remember that those are the two issues. One is, do we have a problem with healthcare, and how bad is it? And the answer is bad enough that this guy has become a hero. And the second is, what do we do with this guy? And, I think despite the fact that the man that he killed is arguably a mass killer himself, I think our society is going to have to grapple with it. It's not as simple as, oh, he did it and everybody's happy. It's just not going to be that simple. Any thoughts, Andrew, before I go to some of the information that we are now getting on this guy?
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that the American people have been pushed to a point where they, on the low end, are just completely apathetic about a CEO being assassinated, to outright cheering and hoping for more. One of, I guess, my petty things is when you're trying to stand on some sort of idea or some sort of I just forgot the word. Why can't I remember the word? Principle. Jeez. Yeah, it's one that you're not willing to do yourself, like the young woman who hoped they got them all. Seemed very happy about this. Of course, she wasn't willing to stand up for that principle herself because she was hoping others would get them all. That kind of irritates me when people. It's like if you really believe that this was a right and good thing, then it's something that you should be willing to engage in yourself or participate in yourself. And I I find it a little disingenuous when people cheer something and say, "Hey, yeah, that's a good thing. We should try and I hope for more," except they're not willing to actually do any work towards getting to that point. I tend to question them, but
let me interrupt
that's
real quick.
Personal thing.
You're roboting a little bit, and I want to give it a second to clear up, but I'm going to suggest that what I think you're saying, just to clarify, because I also want to make sure that we're clear that you're not advocating violence, but what I do think you're saying is that at least I find it interesting. I think you just made a very good point that, it's easy to say, well, let's hope more get shot, but you're not the ones. It's that woman who's just like, they maced me, man. And it's like, well, what were you doing? Well, we're storming the Capitol because it's a revolution. Do you really know what a revolution looks like? And if you want to have a revolution against CEOs, and if you want to start that kind of fight, then start it. But there's going to be consequences, and the people are saying, "Hey, this is great. I want to see more of it." They're sitting, in the cheap seats and egging people on. It's like, there are consequences to this. Are you there?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So
I believe I should be a little bit better. I've got 4 bars now. Perfect.
All right. So you were saying?
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what I mean. It's like, you're putting out a song, that's essentially advocating for more violence, for more assassinations, that you yourself aren't willing, to participate in. You want to remain safely tucked away and just hope that somebody else does all of this for you. It's like, I don't think you understand what it is that you're asking. This is one of the things that when people call for violence, and it pisses me off, especially on the right, when people are like, "Oh yeah, overthrow the government," it's like, that's why I laughed so hard at that woman. It's a revolution, is because you are a complete moron. I'm trying to not curse here and be a little bit.
I already did.
This
show's going to have a hard time avoiding it, I think.
Yeah, it's like, you're a fucking moron. You have no clue what it is you're asking for. Just like the people in the trucking industry. Oh, shut the trucks down for 3 days. We can get the concessions that we want in the trucking industry. It's like, have you really thought this through? Do you know what that actually looks like? It's like, think this through. This is not a good thing to be advocating for. This gets messy fast.
We have too many movies that glorify violence and war, and I'm not one to sit there and say, oh, we can't have those kinds of movies. But let's not sit there and think that a civil or revolutionary war is a fun thing. Both sides in the U.S. Civil War thought that this was going to be a quick thing that would last a couple of months, and the amount of suffering that it caused on both sides before they basically both said, what the fuck are we doing? What on earth? By the time it ended, they were like, there was nothing that was really worth this.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways, the kind of inflection point that we really need to consider, is that something is so drastically wrong that you have pushed a majority of Americans to either be ambivalent or unmoved by an assassination of a CEO, or outright cheering it. It's like, what has gone so horribly wrong that the American people, left, right, center, the majority of Americans are like, while I may not condone this, I don't mourn it either, to outright saying, we need to do more of this. That should be a very clear indication that something is drastically wrong and something needs to be done about it, like post haste, immediately, now. Let's start trying to fix some of this.
Yep. And it's not, for me, and I want to make this clear, this isn't a call for violence, but I think it has to be made clear, and I talked about this in history, you can tell there are markers of what's going to happen before there's a societal collapse and before people really do eat the rich. And the eat the rich isn't a joke. That was what I talked about. That used to happen. They would literally eat the rich, and they'd make the families eat each other, that roast them in front of, that was class warfare, 400 years ago. And it's possible in any country. It's possible in this one. And the fact that so many people are celebrating this guy and that he's become a folk hero and will be a folk hero for the rest of his life and well past, should be an extraordinarily severe warning shot across the bow of that 2%. And again, that's not a threat. That's just when people get this excited, society is already starting to collapse on one front. And it's going to probably, I don't know, it's going to probably take more than a couple of what is it? Just patches that, look like you're doing something when really you're not. The number of, by the way, of approvals from other companies that have happened over the last 48 hours has skyrocketed. This is not just anecdotal. We have seen approval rates now going through the roof as every company is starting to freak out. Now, are they still going to be freaked out 2 months ago? I don't know. I don't know where this is headed. What I know is this is a huge fucking cultural shift in an extraordinarily short period of time. And it has brought the right and left together. So, and it should be concerning to everybody. These kinds of cultural shifts happen, and sometimes they vanish. Sometimes they result in real change. Sometimes they result in just gestures that aren't really change, but satisfy the people for a little while longer, and the steam pressure builds even more. And sometimes they result in some kind of civil war, revolution. And we've seen, again, we've read history. We've seen this. So let me do this. Oh no, okay, I can't do that. What I'm going to do, the French Revolution absolutely was one example that we had given earlier. So we've got a bit more information on this guy. This is the fake ID that was found with him. The name Mark Rosario with that driver's license number matches the hostel name and number for the hostel where he stayed. That appears to be the gun that was used. I can't tell anything by looking at that gun. We also know, and this is honestly, we've seen this before. I was a little shocked to see it, but it's, when the guy shot up Georgia Tech, if I recall, he was actually a very highly educated and rather successful man, and we've often seen people who are sort of at the top of their class. Well, no, I shouldn't say often. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass right now. Let me put up. We've got this though. So he was the from Gunman High School. It's an all boys school. He graduated with honors. He was valedictorian. He graduated with honors cum laude from the University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's of science in engineering and computer information sciences. And then he went on to get his master's in science, engineering, and computer information sciences. So obviously an extraordinarily intelligent person, very well educated, and magna cum laude, and he was a valedictorian. So, and we just got a new member. Thank you very much. This stream is going to be demonetized, and we get demonetized all the time. One of the reasons we get demonetized, we're talking about a very sensitive subject. YouTube would genuinely prefer we do unboxing videos. The top 4 channels are basically unboxing videos. Ooh, let me open up something and boom, and show it to you. And we have decided to do a news channel and to try to be as honest and open as we can about what we talk about. We get demonetized most streams. This stream will absolutely be demonetized because of its content. So super chats, followers joining really does help. And if either that's not your bag, or you can't, even just the likes and subscribes help this channel out a lot. And we like to think that we're original enough and that we provide value enough that it's worth it. So we hope you will consider super chatting and contributing. Anything else that you wanted to say or that you had thoughts about as entering as we talk about this?
I'm worried about where this indicates we're heading as a country. And I was starting again to get kind of doom and gloomy about it. And there's a lot of doom reporting going, hey, this is a serious inflection point. People are now okay with vigilantism for perceived social ills. And where does that stop? And then I, again, remember that in 99% of the cases, we have been in worse situations. There have definitely been worse social atrocities that have gone on in the past in the United States. And in all but one of them, we were managed to step back and kind of chug along. We may not have solved all of the problems. There may have been ongoing problems, but we didn't collapse. But that one time is a bit concerning.
Yeah.
But I think our odds are pretty good of not collapsing this time because of an instance like this. However, we do need to bear in mind that the desperation and anger levels that would push society writ large to be okay with the assassination, vigilantism, is concerning. And we really need to take a look at what needs to be done to rectify the situation that drove people to this point to begin with. And it's not going to be an easy thing to fix because we tend to disagree on the solutions quite a lot. But at this point, I'm willing to say, hey, let's throw the spaghetti against the wall and see which one actually sticks. And we need to start changing something. And when you get paralyzed with being overwhelmed about what you change, you start changing things. And you look and see if things have gotten better or if they've gotten worse. If they've gotten worse, change course, try something else until you start getting incremental increases and we can kind of ferret out what's going to work best. And that's what I hope we'll start doing, because the health industry has been broken, especially the health insurance industry for just general health has been broken for quite some time. Just about everybody kind of agrees that it's been broken for quite some time. And nothing of substance generally happens. And when people try to pass sweeping change, such as the Affordable Care Act, it is met with great resistance by people not wanting to disrupt the system. There's too much money involved, too many special interests involved that are fighting any kind of change because they're being enriched by it. And I think this is a good indication that really needs to stop and that people need to wake up, because if you keep pushing them this way, you're not going to like where it ends. It's like, you're not going to like me when I'm angry. I think that should be the motto of the American people.
Well, that's an interesting, and we've talked about accelerationism and people who actually want society to collapse. I think Elon Musk is one of those people. But accelerationists always think that, and there are plenty of accelerationists on the left. There are people who say, okay, we want society to collapse because then when it does, we're going to construct a Marxist utopia. And the problem is you're facing a lot of other accelerationists who want society to collapse and have a very different vision of that future. So all of them seem to think that when it collapses, it will turn out their way. This is also very reminiscent of Christian Zionism, who basically say, we'd really like to see a war in the Middle East, because once we get a war in the Middle East, Jesus is going to come back. And people have thought that for a while and tried having several wars in the Middle East, and so far, no Jesus. And it's the people who Michelle Michaels. No, I was kidding. I was actually kidding. I was that. We're all no need to apologize. And that was the other thing I was going to say too. Is I think there is going to have to be a lot of charity going around to a lot of people. If you have a family member who says, you know what, good, I'm glad. I think they should have shot him 16 more times. You know what? I think that's a very bad, very unfortunate attitude to have. But I've been processing it. I've been laughing at the jokes. I've been looking at the memes, and I've been laughing at the memes. So, and there are people who look at that and say, how can you be laughing? A guy is dead. There was one TikTok that pointed out, yeah, do you want to know how many people die, in healthcare? I'm not happy. I'm not happy he's dead. But having said that, I'm well aware that he was an integral part of an institution that was making money, denying necessary life-saving care to other people. And you cannot remove one from the other. So we're all processing this. Again, I think that's what we try to do here on In Time, which is to try to have these discussions. And we've gotten it wrong, too. I've said things on air I regret. And usually I'll come back later and say, I said this thing that was really kind of stupid. That's one reason his Andering is good enough to, he and I sit and spitball our ideas before going on air, so we have some idea of what we're going to say, so that we try not to say stupid things, but each of us have, open mouth, insert foot more than once. But again, we A, ask for a little charity, B, try to give it back, and C, that's the only way we're going to find out how we feel about these things. How do we know what we think until we know what we say? Sounds strange, but for a lot of people, myself included, it's true. Liam Wakefield joined and became a member, which we really appreciate. Every membership helps, so thank you. Thank you, Liam, very much. Aussie T, who's been around for a while and has been happy. Good day, team. Happy to help. Thank you. That is a help. Member 6 month as a follower. Spider Fate fella also has become a follower. Thank you very much. We've seen Spider Fate around for a little bit. Ember, $2. Thank you for your time. I've been using the evacuation zones that were set up as traps by the Russians and then got shelled, and we just followed a family from, actually we followed the mother from the day she was born, followed her on social media, tracked everything she had done, and all the way through the war, and her employment, getting married, getting kids, and then tracked her entire life, which ended with her children halfway through one of those zones, and we showed all of that footage. That's not fun, and we don't do that often because, we'd like to have some followers, and nobody wants to see that. Having said that, you have to see that if you're going to make decisions if you're going to make informed decisions about when we should go to war. War is unfortunately necessary. Killing people sometimes is necessary. There's nothing you can do about that. That's life, unfortunately. But doing it uninformed, that's not necessary. And in fact, I think that's not only a miscarriage of justice, but is inherently immoral. You should know what you're doing. So, which goes actually to what you were talking about, that woman on TikTok who was like, I hope more people go out and kill CEOs, right? That was, right? I think that was your objection.
Yeah, it's like she just blithely puts out there, well, I hope we get more of them, and that was the refrain in the chorus, and I'm like, that's I don't think you quite understand what you're asking for, and the fact that you hope that other people are going to do it. You're happy at the outcome, but you're not willing to get in the trenches to do it yourself. It's just a personal thing that bugs the hell out of me. And in some cases, you have to say, no, well, that's actually a really good thing. Otherwise, we're going to have way too many people out there, being vigilantes, and we don't want that either. So, again, there goes that, moralism versus consequentialism argument that I often struggle with.
Yep. All right. Well, I hope this is going to be one of those shows where we may end up with a few more questions than answers, but hopefully there have been at least some answers. For those of you who are coming because of the breaking news, again, we merged two shows into one. We were going to have a show talking about this cultural shift. That's why we're actually in the In Time layout and not the breaking news layout. And the reason is because we actually were going to do a In Time specifically about the cultural shift, but as we were preparing that show, we had to go to breaking because they captured the gunman, and rather than do two shows, which seemed kind of silly, we just merged them into one. So we'll probably update the thumbnail and even the title because the bulk of this show was not about the breaking. All right. Thank you. I don't know. All right. Oh, that would be interesting. All right. So I'm kind of wondering. Let's yeah, I almost want to stay one more minute, and so I can thank. We actually did also get Annie 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐡𝐨𝐥𝐚𝐬, member for 11 months. Much gratitude for In Time Independent. Thank you very much. That means a lot. And by the way, so I'll do this before we go. Come join us on the Discord. We do often get breaking news before it's live. We knew of the collapse of Syria before it happened. We did not go to air with it for a number of reasons, but we did have it, and we tracked the fall of Syria on our Discord, and so many shows that we've done where we've actually had the Prigozhin. We had been covering Prigozhin's invasion of Russia for 4 hours before it showed up on Associated Press or CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox, any of those channels. So we're very proud of that, and I think the people in our live chat will tell you they've seen it and been there for it. And they've seen the people come in and say, oh my God, this has to be clickbait. This can't be real. No, this is real. Welcome to In Time. So join us on the Discord, and you can see how we do it and even participate. We've had a few new people coming in, and we really do appreciate that, and I think we're going to end up keeping an eye on where our culture goes from here. Let me just see if yeah, it looks like there's some speculation as to who this guy was. It seems. Let me just quickly check and see if we've got any. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, he does have family. We've learned he does have family. I'm not going to talk too much about the family because I would imagine the family doesn't want to be in the limelight right now. But thank you for that, Titan. So I think we're gonna learn more about him, and I think we're gonna learn, left, right, all that other stuff reasonably soon. I think it's going to cause a lot of dialogue, and In Time is going to stay up with it. Tonight, In Time will have Commander Lance McMillan on to join us to talk about the fall of Syria. Assad has formally handed power over to the rebels. The UN is talking to the rebels about how they're going to form a new government, and that is going to be interesting. We also know that Israel has invaded elements of parts of Syria, ostensibly to create a buffer. That's the ostensibly used in every invasion that I've seen Israel ever engage in. Those buffers usually end up becoming a permanent part of Israel. They also appear to have attacked a chemical weapons factory and engaged in a few other shenanigans that we will talk about tonight. We don't know the time of the show. We need to get together with Commander McMillan. We were shooting for 6 p.m. Eastern. We will put it up, so make sure you like, subscribe. And the one other thing that Andring is always great about reminding me when I forget, which is, if you like this and you have friends who like this kind of dissection of the news and discussion, pass us along. One of the best things is word of mouth. We're going to be more a word of mouth channel than a clickbait channel, and we're very proud of that. But that means we need your support. I saw someone earlier asking if it was clickbait, and someone had said not on this channel. Yep, damn right, not on this channel. So thank you very much for that. And if you like that, pass it along. It really does help. All right, so I think I'm going to call it. There will be more information. We'll put it straight to the Discord. We don't need to stay on as we're learning this. Since it's not verified yet, I'm not going to go with it. I think it's probably true, but it's not verified, so we're not going. Is Andring, any final thoughts before we go? If you say interesting times.
Oh man, you know me too well. Maybe, yeah, but I'm still going for it. May you live in interesting times.
Okay. Where's the ban button. Titan doesn't let me have control of the ban button, so I can't block or ban people. I don't know why. Titan just doesn't let me have any fun. I think that's why. It's because I think it's funny. We've been through too many hosts. He's just like, you don't get to ban people anymore, Nick. It's all Titan. And when the host like annoys the shit out of me, Titan's like, oh, no, we're keeping this host. This one we're keeping. I was like, but he's conservative. Yeah, but he annoys you, so I'm willing to put up with it. All right, thank you all. Have a great evening, and we will see you later on tonight. We also have downtime scheduled Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm sure this will probably be the discussion, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Lance's view on it. And I think those of you who know Lance, a very thoughtful man with considerable military experience, I think it's going to be worthwhile. Working on a couple other projects, we will let you know. But thank you for joining us, and we will see you later tonight. Have a good one.